starting off by just like saying I just don't think that like Shanks scales to Mihawk in any type of way. Well, Mihawk scales to Shanks, my fault. But yeah, Mihawk, I don't think Mihawk scales to Shanks in any type of way. Either way it works. Basically, the statements about them scale and relative or fighting each other are from years ago, and it's kind of like outdated stuff. It's even to the point where basically like Whitebeard like implies like this happens like a long time ago when Shanks loses his arm. He thinks that like it could have been then from back then. So here's a statement, and this is from like some of the newer stuff in One Piece. Basically, they say that Shanks has only been a Yonko in One Piece for 6 years. And then we know that Luffy set out this year 10 years after like that whole Devil Fruit incident with Shanks. So this is like stuff back then Shanks wouldn't have been a Yonko when he encountered Mihawk. Like, are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a scan as well that it's like very interesting. Whenever Mihawk is referring to Luffy and speaking to him, and he's speaking to Zoro in general, he says that like beating him, the path to becoming Pirate King is even harder than that. And we have scans in Dressrosa that refer to the fact that being a Pirate King, you have to do these things, and these things are required. So basically, yeah, Don Chinchao says that, do you think you can defeat the Marine Admirals in the Yonko? Do you honestly believe you can surpass Roger? Don't make me laugh. Implying that to become Pirate King, you have to do these things, or you have to like encounter the Yonko, fight the Yonko or the Admirals, or just be at this tier of power, which I just feel like is greater than Mihawk's tier. So yeah.
So I would say in contention of having to defeat the Yonko, being a Yonko doesn't necessarily interpret your power alone. A Yonko is built off of a lot more than things based off of just power. Like Kaido being the strongest creature is cool and all. Whitebeard being stated to be the strongest person, period, in One Piece is and all. But for like a big reason why Big Mom, for example, is a Yonko is because of her super in-depth intelligence agency. And the same thing with Shanks. His crew is like stated to be one of the strongest crew. It doesn't necessarily mean that Shanks himself is the strongest. It's more or less that blow for blow, Shanks has some of the strongest people in his crew, and they're closest to him in power, but in no way of him being a Yonko would that be indicative of his power. It just means he's obtained the title of Yonko when many people like for example, Mihawk likes being alone. He likes doing what it is that he does. He cares about being a swordsman, and he cares about finding a rival stronger than Shanks. I can send a scan to that now or later if you want, but Mihawk's goal isn't necessarily Pirate King. He's almost like a nomad, and being Yonko has never really been indicative of power. Otherwise, Luffy like herning Yonkos and stuff would put him relative to them.
Okay. So my contention with that is I do agree that there's multiple things that go or are incorporated into becoming a Yonko. But that doesn't necessarily say or like provide a contradiction to say power isn't included. And judging by the context of the scan, when he's referring to that, go back to the channel. Yeah, where he's saying, do you think that you can defeat the Marine Admirals and the Yonko? He's not saying like the Yonko crew, or he's not saying like the Marine headquarters. He's referring to the Admirals. And this is in terms of tier of power. And in fact, there's multiple scans such as this that refer to the Admirals and the Yonko as being very synonymous or comparable. And here's a scan that's from Fujitora in Dressrosa. I don't care if you're a Navy Admiral or an Emperor of the Sea. If I don't beat each and every one of you, I'll never be King of the Pirates, implying that you have to defeat them. It has nothing to do with necessarily just territory. I do think that obviously you have to go through these things or you might encounter them, but power is definitely something that is contributed into this. And there is like a tier of power that is incorporated in this, generally speaking. So I still do think that this is you saying that Mihawk is some type of individual pirate who doesn't necessarily align himself with the Yonko is fine, but there's still power that is needed for these things. And it's also consistent with the narrative of One Piece, like them being at the top of, the world, the Yonko and the Admirals, Marine headquarters, etc. So
100% I agree with you that power is like a part of becoming Pirate King, or being a Yonko does require power, but it's very hard to quantify how much power Shanks has. And the same thing with Mihawk. That's why this debate is so fun, because their relativity has always scaled so close to each other. But the main thing is, yes, you have to be powerful to quantify a Yonko, but with the scans that you sent, in no way was it really quantifying just how powerful Shanks is. It just means that he might have the power of the Yonko. He could very well be the weakest Yonko, Yonko and just have one of the strongest blow for blow crews, but you're not indicating how strong Shanks actually is. It's just that he is on Yonko level. And warlords, I know you know a whole lot about the government and how they're all about balance. You know what I mean? Multiple times has been stated that the world of One Piece, the balance is going to shift. And the thing is with warlords is they were made to fight the Yonko, or at least be a counterbalance to what the Yonko is. This is talking about when the warlords just disbanded. No doubt the power balance is about to make a huge change, because the Marines clearly, it's not announced yet, hasn't been shown yet or anything, but the Marines clearly have something that they want to use to replace the warlords, but the warlords themselves were meant to stop the Yonko, and we also see that with them all being deployed in the war. And it's stated here in this panel, this is the dissolution of the warlord system. They literally said, but they did a whole lot in the Paramount War, and if you recall that war at all, the only thing Mihawk was really interested in that war was fighting Whitebeard and seeing how relative he was to Whitebeard, because that's all he cared about. He also cares about the power systems in One Piece and fighting all of the Yonkos, and with Whitebeard constantly being contributed and seen as the strongest, that's all Mihawk cares about. He sees Shanks as a lower person. He literally, so in this scan here, he literally says to Shanks, Shanks says to him, I'm not in such a good mood right now, but do you want to come for a fight? And then Mihawk looks at him lesser, because he says, as if I'd want to settle with something as a man with one arm. And he's basically implying, I've already beaten you at your peak. I've beaten you while you were strong, and now you have one less arm. I'm not worried about you anymore. You're not worth a fight to me.
All right, so let me respond to these couple of points to go over. Basically, in regards to the first scan and saying that warlords are supposed to be like counterbalances to the Yonko, not necessarily. So here's this scan right here, which I'm gonna send. 1 second. Find it. One sec. Let me grab it. There's this. Okay, I found it. Yeah, so pretty much here's the scan. There's 2 of them actually. I'll post these for you if my thing can load. All right. So yeah. So this is the scan that actually refers to the whole thing about warlords, Yonkos, and Marines in One Piece. So on the scan, it says the Marine headquarters in the Shibukai exist in order to counterbalance these 4, but they're not talking about Marine headquarters, those 7 warlords versus just the Yonko individually. Contextually speaking, what they would be referring to is the crews. And the reason why it says there are numerous pirates out there, however, he is one of the 4 pirates, and they're referencing the emperors. When you talk about the emperors, there's a difference between mentioning the emperors along with their crews and then just the emperors, like in terms of like a singular term. And it's because like when Luffy does it, he says, I don't care if you are a Navy admiral or an emperor of the sea, I'm going to be each and every one of you. And he's speaking about them in terms of being a person. Whereas the scan that you were posting where it says the balance fell out of power, yeah, it's because they used the warlords to counter these things. And we see this in Marineford directly. And it's funny that you mentioned the quantify thing, because we actually are able to demonstrate this. And the reason why is we see people like Vista being able to swap hands with Mihawk. So during the fight with Vista, this is actually a statement that is made. This is from the One Piece Blue Data Book. And it basically refers to the fact that Vista is equal to Mihawk, and this is in terms of power. Vista showed his swordsmanship, which is equal or superior to Mihawk's in this fight.
Could you show me?
Even if yeah, okay, go ahead.
Could you show me where you got that quote from? Because I don't know, like where that translation is at, or like.
Oh, this is just a translation from the statement.
But like, what, like from
in the kanji.
From who though?
No, it's a translation that I did. I got from a website. I just translated it.
I don't know if that could be accurate. Because
I mean, yeah. Okay, 1 second. Hold up. Let me get this for you. This. Let's see if I can get the kanji. All right, 1 second. All right, so here is the scan I was referring to. So here's a website basically, and it talks about all the One Piece data books. This is from One Piece Data Book Blue, just in case you think it's like some fake like translation or something. And if you go to One Piece Data Book Blue, and here's like the in-depth form of it. This is like the initial kanji. It's on the side referring to the clash between them and just the fight is in general. And then it says, yeah, Vista showed his swordsmanship, which is equal or superior to Mihawk's in the fight. And then here's a quote that just says, Vista has the skills to compete with Mihawk, one of the most famous swordsmen in the world. He wasn't afraid to confront him despite knowing Mihawk was the strongest. So yeah, that's just what it actually reads, the kanji. So unless you can show some type of contradiction or it's like translated to be something else.
I would just say that this statement is to me, it's kind of null because I don't know how you would quantify if it was equal. He could feel possibly that Vista could feel that he was possibly equal or stronger to Mihawk. But what happens in this fight is Mihawk literally says, we should do this later. I'm just here for Whitebeard. And Vista says also that it would benefit us both. So Vista is confident in his skills against Mihawk, but we never really saw anything play out there at all.
So I would say that if you're gonna take the stance, right, like more of like the skeptic or lean towards that stance and be like, yeah, we can't really determine like who would have, been at this pinnacle of power, who would like superseded the other in terms of overcoming them. These things don't necessarily have to matter, and it's because what the data book is stating is just that they're equal. Now it's like, when are they referencing that they're equal? All we know is that Mihawk isn't able to overcome Vista in the same way that Vista isn't overcome Mihawk. So we have multiple evidence to prove that one or the other isn't overcoming the other one. So we can make the conclusion that it's referring to them being equal as power. And as well, this isn't just an opinion that we have. This is something that is stated in the data book. And I don't see why it would have like an overall bias towards it even like proposes the example that you could interpret it to be superior. But what I wouldn't argue is that Vista is superior to Mihawk. I rather argue that he is equal to Mihawk. And we see that. We don't have a reason to assume that Mihawk would be stronger.
Well, my only contention with it is like the translation it's not accredited to anything. We don't know how it's translated, where it's translated to. We don't know if there's translator bias involved. And we also have multiple statements from Vista saying that like he would be a fool not to know Mihawk. And like, yes, I understand Vista could be confident, but with that scan that you sent, I see no crediting towards who the translator was. I have no idea if there's translator bias. I have no idea who translated it, how it translated it, what that kanji actually says, or anything. That's the only reason why I'm skeptical of that data book scan, because to me, it just there's no accreditation. It's just a Word document on top of a picture.
Okay, so my thing is like whenever there's like a translation, whether it be from like Viz Media or like a scan in general, If I get the scan or I just post you like I don't know, like the English trans from it, like the same way you're posting this scan, it says like the Whitebeard Pirates 5th Division Commander Flower Story Vista. I can play skeptic and I can be like, yeah, I don't know why I should trust that scan. That scan could have had translator bias in it. Like we can do that with every single like source of material in the verse, right? But if I'm posting you the kanji for it and then I give you the translation for that kanji, your job, like I've already fulfilled my burden of proof. So your job from that point is to look at the kanji and then tell me that it says something else. And you would have to demonstrate it that it shows something else. Because if I'm demonstrating to you why it does, then you would go with the more likely assumption using like Occam's razor, just coming to like the common conclusion that Vista is equal to Mihawk. We can't just be skeptic about the scan because then we could be skeptic about every single translation. And that's just going to go into like a regression in the debate where we're just going to continue to go off of like, well, I don't think this is this and this is that. And like the whole translator bias thing, when you translate certain kanji, like the word sekai in Japanese, like the whole thing being universe, world, society, or these things that it could mean, some people use translator bias to assume that it means one of the terms and they make that jump to that conclusion without actually having a basis. Whereas that translation doesn't use these types of words. It's just directly translated from the kanji. You'd have to demonstrate that there's a translator bias to it before just assuming that. That would be like my rebuttal to that. But
Okay, I agree with that point. I would just like to know like where it's because like like Viz Media and stuff like those are things that you actually pull from. But like I just don't know where that translation came from is really my main contention with that. But we could, like you said, we could just go on that all day.
mm-hmm.
So what was your point of scaling them to like equal or stronger?
My point is saying that like Vista would be equal to Mihawk, and then obviously we have reason to believe that Whitebeard is above Vista. And obviously I would be scaling Shanks to Whitebeard because Shanks is able to perform this feat right here. Let me get the panel for it. So yeah, we see Shanks verbatim clash with Whitebeard. And they have like a Conqueror Haki clash, and they actually split the clouds. There's like a calc for it, but that's not really necessary. But yeah, they clash. And this would be like more impressive than the whole Vista scale into Mihawk in a sense. And we have like people like Jozu as well who are able to overcome Mihawk slash, which I'll get in this panel right. Where's it? One second. Let me get a scan for you. Yeah, so it's this scan right here. Basically, he throws the slash. It's called the world's strongest slash, and then he intercepts it and blocks it. And normally, people just scale this to like the durability of Vista, which I think is like kind of downplay. Because if he's able to force it into the sky, he actually has to have more force and he would be having a higher potency than the slash itself. Because he's able to directly throw it into the clouds. So it's actually like more of an impressive feat than like people give him credit for.
I would say for that there, he's actually not throwing it. He's just using physics to his advantage to divert it into the sky because that's clearly not a throw that he was executing there. He diverted the energy to the point to where the arc of it was now aimed more towards the sky, So the finishing blow that Mihawk launched out to determine the distance between him and Whitebeard just finished by propelling into the sky. It wasn't in any way Jozu throwing it. He was just directing it towards the sky. And he was using that with his diamond armor.
Okay, so I'll get a scan for that. 1 second, so I can show you what I'm referring to. Yeah, so yeah, here's like a more like a accurate depiction. It's like the same thing in the manga as well. But yeah, like here we have like the scan that I was referring to, where basically we still like we actually see him like take the attack, like he endures it for a little bit, and then he throws the attack upwards into the sky, and that's where we see like another. There's actually a calc for that as well, but we actually see him disperse the energy into this cloud. So not only does he have to overpower it because he's taking the attack head on and he runs into the attack, right? This would mean are you familiar with like Counterforce? Like,
No.
it's like AP skills to durability. Like if I'm able to throw an attack, I should be able to take that attack unless I'm a glass cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So typically your AP skills to your durability, and if we have a scene here of like Jozu throwing this into the sky and he's running towards this, and if he's able to tank that attack, he should also be able to technically dish out that attack as well, or an attack similar to it in potency.
So what you said there with like being a glass cannon, I just feel like it's the opposite for Jozu because of his Devil Fruit to be able to turn into a diamond. There's no way at any point has Jozu shown being able to dish out an attack like that, but he's the opposite of a glass cannon where he just has absolutely insane defense because of his Devil Fruit. And yes, he stopped the attack head on. I still also think that is his durability that is able to stop it. But once again, the GIF that you sent and the panel that you sent, it wasn't showing him throwing it into the air. It still seems like he's being directed up into the air. Because if you look at the GIF right now, the way it's looping, you see all of those spikes of energy consistently moving forward, meaning energy is still being propelled through the back towards Diamond Jozu, and he just takes that front end of the energy, the thing that would be the heaviest, and propels it into the air, and that is why it launches off in the air at such an insane speed.
Okay, so I'll get this for you so I can show you what I'm talking about. I'll just get like a timestamp. It's gonna be like a clip.
And also, I wanna go back to the Whitebeard and Shanks thing. And with this.
Okay, I'll show you too. 1 second. Yeah, so if you go to this clip right here and you go to like 2:30, basically Jozu he plants his feet into the ground, implying that he's just basically taking the attack head on. There's like it's not pushing him back. He's able to completely create like a firm hold grip on the attack itself, and then he takes his arms, he grabs the attack, and he throws the attack into the air and propels it with force. And that like clears the clouds as well, or like the sky. So yeah, he's directly just throwing the attack and overcoming it in terms of power.
Yeah, so see what I see here is him changing the direction of that energy. He may have lifted it up, but he's changing the arc point of this final point of energy as I'm looking at right here. The moment he throws it up, which is right now.
Well, I mean, it's just the equivalence of like if I throw a weight at you, or like I'm throwing like a 50-pound weight at you, and you're able to grab it, you're able to stop it, stand your ground, you throw the weight into the air. I mean, you still have enough force to physically throw the weight. So regardless, the attack has like a certain weight to it, or like a certain amount of power or energy to it in joules. So he's basically able to have enough or exert enough joules and power to throw the attack into the sky.
So I'm gonna go live right here. As you can see, this is like the initial arc of energy, and all this energy, of course, was going towards Whitebeard's ship. And then he had the ability to divert the energy to go up into the sky. Okay. So now you can see there's an initial time. If he was throwing it, all of this energy would be lifted almost simultaneously. But what he did was divert it to where the energy was now just spurting upward. And then that moment where everything launches off, his throw's already complete there. Now the energy is just taking the new path that it was diverted to.
All right, so let me say something towards that. It doesn't have to be instantaneously. It's like similar to like weight training, or just like generally just lifting something, right? Like for him to lift it instantaneously, that would imply that he had like greater power over it. And he was that strong to throw it that fast into the air, where we see him actually struggle with the attack. So I'm not arguing that like Jozu is massively stronger than Mihawk here. I'm just saying that he has to be at least relative to the attack to be able to physically take that attack and throw it. And you saying that like he's like using his body, some type of like lever to do this. Well, he grabs the attack, and like, do you realize that like obviously like since energy is exerted in joules, and Mihawk is propelling the attack and throwing it towards the like the Whitebeard itself, for Jozu to run at that attack and stop that attack from gaining any leeway or going any further, Jozu has to physically have at least enough force. It's like similar to saying that like Luffy and like Katakuri or like Naruto, Sasuke, or any fighter in general clashes fist. And well, if one is way stronger than the other counter force wise, then the other would go flying and they wouldn't be able to stop the attack at all. So because Jozu's able to stop the attack somewhat, at least, and he's grabbing it, it's not like he's just standing in front of it with his body. He physically grabs the beam. We know that this is impressive because it takes a certain amount of force to do that. So I still feel like Jozu is able to counter this attack. He is able to propel this attack, even if it's not instant. He's at least relative to the attack itself. So and I can give you a calc for it if you want.
So I would say what you were saying with energy is if you are throwing energy at something, okay, anything, and it gets stopped, it is going to find the next easiest way to go out. Okay, so yes, he is strong enough to tank the attack and he is strong enough to move it. But what I'm saying, my whole case is that he's simply diverting it and not throwing it, because the energy's hardest way to travel through is through that diamond body of his, which is completely stopping it to the halt. So if he lifts it up, the energy's now easiest way, it has a free route of going directly upwards to the sky. And that's not indicative of Diamond Jogon throwing it. It's indicative of the power. What?
Okay, so what would you have to say about the fact that even if I steel man or I say that yes, he stops it with his body at first, right? What do you have to say? Like it's like me like let's say I tackle you and like obviously like you stop me with your body, and even if like in this case you're Jozu and then you were to stop me with that force of your body, sure, you could be like, yeah, your body's that strong, but what about me grabbing you with my arms, right? Because obviously he stops using his body, he grabs the attack with his arms, and then he dispels it and throws it. And like similar to like the whole energy thing that you're trying to argue that like energy has to escape somewhere, I don't know where you're getting that from, because if Jozu has his arms on the attack and the attack is physically stronger than Jozu, then Jozu would have lost his arms that day. So because Jozu is able to keep the attack at bay and hold the attack and disperse it, he has to at least be relative.
His durability would be relative, yes.
Well, his AP as well, because he's exerting that force. Like there's like a whole force thing into it.
So that is where we disagree.
Okay, I'll get this for you as well. 1 second. Let me try to get this for it as well. 1 second. And you're saying that your contention with his, you agree that his durability scales to it, but you're saying not his AP.
Yeah.
And like, what's your logic behind saying his AP doesn't scale?
So his durability, he's almost the opposite of what you said about a glass cannon being able to be one shot. He's ridiculously durable, and I don't think that he is fully dispersing the energy to throw up the thing, the slash from Mihawk. I think what he is doing is, because same thing with energy. Like if somebody is on the ground and you help them up, right? Like you grab their hand and you help them up. If they do nothing, if they just lay there like a bag of rocks, it is going to be ridiculously hard for you to lift them up.
All right, one second. My main contention is saying, what's your reason for saying his AP doesn't scale to his durability, or in this case, his attack potency isn't relative to what he can take as an attack?
Because he's not dispersing the full attack, he is simply lifting it up and letting the energy discharge upward. And he's not lifting the full attack.
1 second. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm saying, because even if I steel man this, right, and I'm like, yeah, sure, Jozu's able to tank the attack, right? We know that generally speaking, the common assumption using Occam's razor, or just like the most likely thing, is that your AP is always relative to your durability. So what's your reason for saying that his AP doesn't scale to his durability? Are you saying that we don't see it?
Yeah, we don't see it.
Okay, well, then that would be an argument from ignorance. Like, are you familiar with that?
Well, yeah, explain how it would be an argument from ignorance.
Okay. So an argument from ignorance would be like, well, like I can give it to you in this case just so it makes more sense, right? But an argument for ignorance in general is just being like, if I assert like a proposition, right, and then I say like it like something is true, and then you say it's not true because let me see. I'm trying to explain this in like an easier way for you, so you don't get confused. Here, put in the simple standards. Okay, an argument from ignorance example is like you can't prove that you're innocent, therefore you are guilty to me. Like you can't demonstrate a reason why you are not in it, like you're not innocent, or why you are innocent, so therefore you aren't. It's basically saying that like we can't say why Jozu would have enough power to do something. So we're basically agreeing to the example that Jozu can't do something because we haven't seen it. When the general conception or like the general assumption is saying that he would scale to the attack. So you're asserting the value that we can't assume that Jozu can do something if we haven't seen him do it when we're easily able to, based off the preponderance of evidence of how the series works in terms of power.
So that's
and like I can send you like the fallacy on it as well.
So that's not where my contention lies. You're sending the scan that would make his AP relative to his defense, and all I'm saying is that is not making it relative because he's not directing all of the power. We see the power shoot up continuously afterwards, and we see a time where it takes him to lift it, but the power tails afterwards because it was constantly shooting towards Jozu. I'm not saying he doesn't scale to his AP. I'm just saying this one feat that you're saying makes him relative. To me, it does not, and my point of contention is simply that he is dispersing the energy in a different place.
All right, one second. So let's take this one step at a time, and then I feel like we should close this point off. Just to move on throughout the debate. But like you agree that Jozu would scale relative, and like Jozu's durability is high enough to take the attack, right?
It's high enough to withstand it.
Yeah, okay. So if Jozu's durability is high enough to take the attack, what I'm asserting is the value that Jozu must also be strong enough to dish an attack like this out. And you're trying to go against this by saying, well, we never see him do this, correct?
Not only that we never see him do this, but we see like there's no evidence that he's also like I understand what you're saying, but yeah, we have not seen him do anything like that. We've seen him damage Kuzan while he was off guard, but there's no evidence to imply that he'd be able to generate an attack like this. So my point would be that he is kind of stated to be like a heavily defense-based character.
So yeah, so my thing would still be like, yeah, that kind of like it kind of seems to be like an argument from ignorance. Like I'll post that like as well, why it's like a logical fallacy. And even like regarding like the whole Kuzan point that you were talking about, why he's off guard, I'll actually post the context for that scan just because I kind of feel like people get confused. Let me get it for you 1 second. Here. And like even if like this is just to like show you like why like it's like very consistent as well for people to be that strong. Here. I have this scan saved. Let me look for it. Okay, I found it. So yeah, here's a panel where like Jozu Aokiji. Jozu like directly runs for Aokiji. And yes, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna be like, yeah, Whitebeard's Placento, like the name of the sword that he has, and he's like surrounding his body against it. But we directly see like Aokiji be able to adapt his Logia around the set attack, and it's like similar to like this type of advanced observation Haki that Katakuri uses. But what's funny is that if you actually look at the panel where Jozu is running from, Jozu is running in a linear attack, in the linear attack pattern. He's just running straight towards Aokiji. So if he's running straight towards Aokiji and Aokiji sees Jozu, which he does in the panel before this, I'm pretty sure you have it like yourself. Am I not mistaken?
Let me try and see if I
think I sent that one before. Okay, I have it even if you don't. Here. Yeah, so if we look at the scan behind this is the scan where basically Aokiji's on the Basenta. And basically what Aokiji does, I don't know why I have to click it for it to load, but basically what Aokiji does is he looks on the bottom left panel. We see him look at the attack, and then he just gets attacked by it. He gets smacked. and then we see him bleed. So it's like very consistent that if he's on this Basento, and even if you say he's off guard, we know Aokiji is able to move his devil fruit around attacks. And he does this with Whitebeard as well. So if you take the position that he was off guard in some way, or you try to say that he was off guard, but we have reason to believe he's not because we see things like this happen. We see Aokiji like be able to directly react to multiple quakes, and he's able to form his body to the point where he's able to avoid the vibrations. He should easily be able to do the same here because it's an AoE. If he's being attacked by multiple things, it kind of replicates that AoE, and he's not able to react to it until the point where, yeah, like I said, he bleeds from that attack.
Well, I would say that this is very, like, the AoE is coming when this happens, and he probably knows how his Logia would work to dodge that AoE, so that wouldn't even really be close. Because, yeah, if you look in the bottom left panel, it appears that directly right before Aokiji gets hit, it is the attack is arriving at his face. That is why it was able to damage him. He may have been able to negate some of the damage, but he was not fast enough.
You're saying that Aokiji, like on the bottom left panel, it's right near his face when he reacts to it?
Yeah.
Okay, so not necessarily. It's because it's because there's no like time frame even for the anime. Basically, just says like he stabbed him with Haki. Is Aokiji dead? This is after Whitebeard when he's fighting him. And on the panel right there, we just see like Aokiji look at him. And even if you're like it's right near his face, and I was to like Steelman that like it's close to him, we see, like I said, these vibrations are all around him unless you can quantify the distance or the difference between the attacks. Where Whitebeard is using his Yami Yami, or in my fault, the Gura Devil Fruit to replicate this vibrational attack. If you can't quantify the difference between this scan right here and the scan in the other one, I would just say that there's no real difference in power or speed there, especially with Whitebeard being stronger. Like, if anything, it would make more sense that Jozu should have, Whitebeard should be above this, but we see right here Jozu is able to attack him. And I have a Vivre card for Jozu as well that refers to him as being like very nimble in the Whitebeard parts, like to like constitute him being that fast. So I think it's consistent with him as a person.
So my argument with this would be, like I said earlier, you know when Whitebeard is starting those earthquakes, and you can see Aokiji, his idea to stop it is just basically become fully ice and let himself dissolve. So that was a knowing versus surprise attack. So you know that Whitebeard's starting those earthquakes.
So why can't Aokiji dissolve his body in the same way with Jozu?
Because he wasn't able to react fast enough to him being there.
So if he's not able to react fast enough, it's fair to assume that he just doesn't scale to Jozu in speed, and as well as the Vivre card statement that I'm posting where it literally just says, despite that, or he knows a bunch of wrestling fighting moves, he does have an insane amount of muscle and grit strength with a block of ice. And it says, despite this, he's actually incredibly quick and agile, making him both tough and nimble, a combo that is devastating for opponents. And then right here, we see an example of this being devastating. And it's weird that we see this statement for Jozu, but we don't see this statement for people like Marco or others in the Vivre card. Besides Speedy what's his name? Jizo or something, whatever the dude, Speedy Juro, I think, or something like that, the dude on the Whitebeard Pirates. But yeah, we see these statements about speed or being agile for people like Jozu or and him, but not for Marco or other people like Whitebeard. And he's also able to run across that same panel I posted for Mihawk. He's actually able to run across the battlefield and react to that attack because he wasn't initially there. He actually ran over there to intercept that attack. So I think he just scales to these things in reaction speed, and it's like consistent for him to be that fast.
So the only thing with the Vivre card that I would say is a lot of this is just like up to interpretation of like where they are at in the series at the time, because it says right here, point blank, Mihawk is the strongest swordsman who sits on top of all swordsmen. But then he also says later in this scan, he looks forward to a day a swordmaster will emerge to surpass even his rival, red-haired Shanks. So he's still quantifying him as his rival, even though it's been stated that Mihawk beat him. And it also says, you could see here where he says, I believe. This implies that he wants to find an opponent even stronger than Shanks, but take that as you will. So nothing.
Wait, you can go ahead.
So nothing here necessarily indicates that it's actually what is going on. It's just what the author at the time is believing.
So the issue with that is basically saying that in the scan, the Vivre card is actually translating the SBSs and things and information that Oda gives us. So a lot of the times when these Vivre card statements are made, Like the quotations are like writer's notes where basically the person who translated it gives his own opinion or he puts it in a bracket. Um, these things that are in brackets are able to be left up to interpretation, similar to what he says. The whole thing about saying that like he beat Shanks is actually not true. It's just that like it's like me saying I'm the title, I'm like the strongest fighter in the world, and then you basically you fail to take the title from me. That doesn't necessarily mean that like you're weaker than me, because we can fight out like a stalemate for all we know, which they are. They're implied to be rivals, they're implied to fight these amount of times and for this long. So I feel like even if Shanks wasn't able to directly strip the title from Mihawk, they're still implied to be extremely relative. And mind you, this statement doesn't even really matter. And the reason it doesn't is because these are statements from what I'm arguing that it is a weaker person, because we kind of already agreed to the notion that Vista is stronger than Mihawk. Oh, I mean, Vista is equal to Mihawk. And then we have the fact that I was arguing to you, Whitebeard is stronger than Vista, unless you disagree with that somehow. And I feel like after that point, it would have to go into an argument about what a swordsman is in One Piece to argue if he is a stronger swordsman than Vista.
Yeah, I'm just distracted because you said the whole SBA thing, but literally in the SBA, Oda says that Nami could take out everyone in the One Piece universe. I'm trying to figure out what that was, because he asked a question about like Usopp's, not Usopp, Luffy's Conqueror's Haki, and if it would work on a Den Den Mushi. Like Oda just trolls in SBAs a shit ton.
There's a difference between like and like the whole SBS is the difference between like Oda giving like legitimate information and then Oda like actually like bullshitting. And then obviously like you do these things in like the memeing way, or to be like you use it in terms of like satire. It's like clear to see like when he's joking. Versus like when these are actual legitimate things. So like he is the world's strongest swordsman. This is said in the manga. Like Mihawk became famous even before the Great Pirate era. Like these are just Oda given information versus like the sections that you're referring to, like where he does the Q&As. These are different from Oda actually dropping information on the characters. Like the Q&A questions are different. Like he even like changes characters' birthdays for like some of the fans, or like gives like a birthday to like a fan for like a certain character. Like those are completely different things. But I would like to like dive into like what a swordsman means and why I think that Whitebeard would be a stronger swordsman than Vista would be. Hence, like obviously Shanks to Whitebeard. Like if you're okay with moving to that.
Well, I want to get into the Shanks and Whitebeard not being relative thing.
Okay, yeah, you're free to.
Okay, so the whole thing with we've discussed this before, but there's a difference between intent to kill and intent to end a fight in one blow, and Whitebeard obviously did not have that there. There's multiple things, like with Shanks siding with Whitebeard in this war. They've never really had conflict as a Yonko. Shanks has known him as a child. There is really no intent to kill there. The same thing happens with... One second, I have to cough.
All right.
The same thing really happens when Akainu was going to kill Kobe, and Shanks stops that. That doesn't necessarily make Shanks scale to Akainu, because Akainu was attempting to kill Kobe, somebody far weaker, and Shanks is just able to stop it. Same thing with the Clash of Whitebeard. They just touch swords, and then they say, all right, let's have some tea. And another thing that also leads up to this is there would be no reason for Whitebeard to go all out on Shanks, because one, Whitebeard, Shanks in no way was trying to compete with him at that time. They were both preparing for a war. More importantly, Whitebeard was on medicine, trying to stay safe for the war, because he knew he was going to have to exert all of his force there. And they also talk about, so Blackbeard says in the Paramount War that he just kind of dipped in to steal Whitebeard's fruit, because he was not ready to fight in that war. He was not able to do that yet. But meanwhile, a long time ago, Blackbeard, well, I don't know how long ago, honestly, Blackbeard was able to damage Shanks.
So this is, let me respond to some of these points, because I don't want to like get a shotgun or overwhelm thing. But like the whole, in regards to like my fault, hold on, I got a cough too. The whole thing, like in regard to like the whole Whitebeard statement, and like you trying to say that like Whitebeard is like it's like similar to like the Akainu example. The reason why it's not is like so there's people don't understand, like there's a distinction between like being willing to kill somebody and then being able to use like all your power. Like obviously, like if I kill a fly and I was to squash a bug, right, I can have the intent to kill, but that does not mean that I have to go full power. So that is the Kainu and Kobe situation, where Shanks intercepts an attack that was meant for a fly in that analogy, right? Whereas in this Shanks example, there is no intercepting. Even if Whitebeard doesn't have the intent to kill or he doesn't want to kill Shanks, it doesn't mean that he has to go all out. And the reason why it doesn't mean that he can't go all out. And the reason why we're able to prove this is consistent is because there's this scan right here from Big Mom and Kaido. And basically, Big Mom and Kaido have a Conqueror's Haki clash, and they're actually able to split the sky. And this happens with Whitebeard and Shanks, coincidentally. It also happens with Doflamingo and Luffy, and Chinjao and Luffy, and et cetera, whenever people have this Conqueror's Haki. This clash, Oda can narratively, he kind of uses this to implement the fact that two people are extremely relative, because we know when Kaido and Big Mom do this, they fight for multiple days. We know when Luffy and Chinjao do this, they have a struggle implying that they're relative, and we have multiple reasons to assume whenever we see this Conqueror's Haki clash with the sky splitting, that these two people are relative in terms of power. And the point that you're trying to say that he was on medicine and he was actually healed, are you aware of the statement that actually says that Whitebeard during the war is actually weaker than the Whitebeard who was on the ship? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So what I would say from that point on is because Whitebeard with medicine in his body, obviously he can still fight with those tubes and things in him, because we see him clash with Shanks. So this would actually be a stronger Whitebeard, arguably unquantifiably. It wouldn't really matter, because the point is that this Whitebeard is said to be the strongest man. This Whitebeard is still has this intense amount of power. So I think that it's fair to assume that Whitebeard was going all out and he wasn't holding back. And narratively speaking, that's kind of what was happening on the ship. It's oh, hey, Jozu, hey, Marco, all you guys, hey, stay back. The boss and the other boss are about to fight. That's kind of what they're showing narratively, is that Shanks is here. And you trying to argue that he wants to conserve power. They were days away, because this happens. Shanks goes on that ship to fight, and then this happens way later, is when the Marineford incident happens. So this isn't the same thing, and this is also goes to show the same way you can do this for Shanks. The same way you can do this for Whitebeard, we can also pull the same thing for Shanks, because there's a scan right here. Let me get it for you.
Wasn't Impel down literally a day before Marineford?
A day?
Yeah, when they got so that wasn't that long before, because this happened in between those two things.
Unless you can, a day is still enough. I can clash at full power and then not get hurt.
And also,
especially if we're relative.
I don't think that Haki is indicative of equal power. I think Haki is just a willpower flex. You can clash Haki with each other, but I don't think that necessarily indicates your power as an equal. I think it just both means that you have Conqueror's Haki, because nobody really has stronger or weaker Conqueror's Haki unless you have evidence that proves against that. But it seems like Conqueror's Haki is just Conqueror's Haki.
Okay, I do. So we basically see Conqueror's Haki, just it's you imposing that willpower. Or they call it the Supreme Color of Kings, depending on what translation you use. But the reason why it's important, or it's indicative in the series, is basically in these times to where we see Whitebeard clash with Shanks, or Big Mom clash with Kaido. You trying to argue that it's willpower doesn't really depict what I'm arguing. I'm saying that narratively, right? Argumentation is also arguing what's happened from the story, is also a crucial part of this, is because whenever we see these clash of two people, obviously we see Luffy and Katakuri Conqueror's Haki clash, but it's not in the same example to wherever we see Yonkos or higher tier characters split the sky. And we see that the Yonkos are incredibly relative, because there's a panel right here that is made from Momonga where he basically says that, in any case, this would be a monumentous thing, any Yonko fighting another Yonko. And this is a scan I was going to post before that thing came. It's that they say his skirmish with Kaido, the Yonko, was only yesterday, and now he showed up here. So you're trying to say, well, the Impel Down thing was a day ago. Obviously, me and you can have a fight, and the day can pass and I can be perfectly fine. We don't have to necessarily fight to the death or fight till we're both wounded, but you guys powers can still be relative in terms of AP and attack potency in general. And the Yonkos are stated to be synonymous or relative, multiple times throughout the series. So it makes sense for Shanks to be on this tier of power. I'm not saying Shanks is stronger than Whitebeard, but I'm saying that Shanks would at least have to be at this tier of power in general.
So my only disagreement with that is you said arguing narrative is important. Like I said earlier in the narrative, like Shanks has known Whitebeard his whole life growing up. Essentially, they you can also see later in the war after like he knows that Shanks endorses Luffy and he says protect Luffy with your life. It is that simple. And then also arguing narrative. They hit each other's swords once. There is no way to tell that Whitebeard is going all out. And I would say using narrative, knowing that a war is happening, because it's not worth it to risk. If you think that somebody is relative to you, you are going to have a hard time fighting them and possibly presume to take damage. It would be smarter. It would be smarter to not go all out against this person, especially when you know that they're not their enemy. And arguing narrative directly after clashing swords one time and testing each other's hockey, they just sat down and had some tea.
Okay. So the whole point that you're like arguing about like though like conservative like thing with like conservative strength, like I said, like unless you can like quantify like, hey, like me and this person we collided swords yesterday, so like I'm gonna be like 50% weaker or anything. These things kind of really don't matter. Like what matters is the fact that they're able to clash. And like obviously, like I said, if you're relative in terms of power, which they are, because the Yonkos are all stated to be, you know, at this level or speaking to be synonymously, right? And to demonstrate this, like I said, I already gave you like the evidence with like the hockey clash and all this thing. But in the newer chapters of One Piece, there's this statement that a lot of people misinterpret and they don't understand. So whenever they refer to Luffy being at this level and Kaido questions, he's like, yeah, you know, how high are you? Like, and he envisions all these people, like, you know, the statement where he basically says like the people that can fight him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that statement is just saying that like, yeah, if you're not envisioned, then you know, you can't fight Kaido, which I don't believe to be true. I think it's contextually speaking what he's arguing, and you have to argue what he actually means by the statement. Because we know that Big Mom fight Kaido, and it was for several days, right? So Big Mom isn't in here, and even if you said Big Mom is next to him, it doesn't make sense why he wouldn't have Big Mom and like in this. And even if you said like, yeah, well, you know, she's because Big Mom is next to him, she's not in vision. We know that Kaido fought the 9 Red Scabards, right? And they're able to actually fight Kaido, regardless if he was going all out. They're able to fight him, they're able to wound him, and they're still not here. So these people who are here, right, you can argue that all these people, narratively speaking, or things that we have off of their feet would be able to hurt Kaido or could potentially kill Kaido. Like Odin gave him a scar, wounded him, potentially could beat him. Roger like scales to Whitebeard. Like Kaido literally went to Whitebeard to die. And then we see Shanks here with Rock Zebek and all of these people as well. So we know that they had a skirmish like we had a skirmish in general. So for Kaido to see Shanks with all of these people who could injure him speaks to say that Shanks is at this tier of power where he would be able to injure Kaido in general, and he should be able to beat Kaido, arguably, potentially. Not saying he would. I'm just saying like.
So before I get Shotgun, I just want to address one point. I don't mean to cut you off, but it's what you said way earlier, so I want to touch on this point. So how you said with hockey, like when they combine and clash, it means that they are relative to each other. Going off of that.
No. Oh.
You did say that they were relative in power if they're hockey clashes.
Only when the sky splits. That's kind of what they're showing there.
So as I was stating, I disagree that they are relative in power, but what I was stating is even if they were, let's say that they were, Whitebeard would not want to take that fight because what happens when people are relative in power? Look at any of Luffy's fights against Doflamingo. Severely wounded, has to be escorted by an entire village for 10 minutes just to stay in that fight. When Luffy versus Kategori, once again, severely wounded. They couldn't split the skies because they were in a mirror dimension. But when you're relative to somebody, you're most likely going to get severely wounded. And you said that I would have to make the point that they wouldn't be fine after the fight. I don't think either had interest in a fight because they knew that war was coming up. It was very close. And even if they were relative, it would be stupid to risk taking any damage, period.
So my thing is towards that thing is like all these examples that you're given like a flaw, and the reason why there is because like the whole Luffy and Doflamingo thing, when Luffy kicks Doflamingo's leg and they have that whole supreme color clash, like in like the sky, like, you know, starts like tweaking, and like you see like the color of like Conqueror's hockey like start spreading out everywhere. Right there, none of them are like injured. It's as the fight goes on. So yes, if you were to say as the fight goes on, yeah, one of them might get injured. They're going to take a couple of blows or damage. But that's fine. You can perfectly clash with somebody and not suffer severe or fatal injury. And we see this, like I said, Big Mom and Kaido literally duke it out, and they're fine. There's no like severe injury going down there. Shanks and Whitebeard could have relative attack potency to each other to the point where a couple of clashes, they're able to produce the same power. But obviously, if they kept on fighting, somebody might have been injured. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm just saying purely for AP references that Shanks has similar AP or attack potency to Whitebeard does. And it's very consistent using like the sky split and in all these examples to where you agree that these people like Luffy and Dofi were relative, Luffy and Katakuri, and all these other examples we have of people being relative in terms of power. So it's fine if somebody gets injured, and even if I were to steel man your point and say like eventually like over time, one of them would get weaker, so it makes sense to conserve your energy, which is fine. It's just probably the reason why they did stop. Who knows? These things don't matter due to the fact that initially they still have relative power to each other, which is all I care for. And I would be arguing Whitebeard is stronger than like Jozu and Vista, unless you have a contention with Whitebeard being stronger than Vista.
No, so my argument would just be that I don't think that they were relative. If anything, I think it was more of a greeting, just because they've always like fucked with each other like that. And the same thing goes with when Luffy's introduced in Marineford, Whitebeard tests him too. He tests his Conqueror's Haki just to make sure that he can withstand it, even though they didn't clash. Shanks boards the ship by himself while there are a bunch of people around him. Whitebeard sees him. They introduce themselves. They clash once. There's no reason. I don't think you provided a good enough reason to why Whitebeard would have to go even close to full power right there.
Okay. Did you see the scan that I literally I presented that imply that all of the Yonkos are relative?
Send it again.
Yeah, I'll post it. I posted this scan, and basically it's from a manga that provides like to show that if the Yonkos fight, this is like a great thing because how powerful each of the Yonkos are. Like you have to have a certain tier of power. It's fine if like I agree, like I actually argue Whitebeard is stronger than Shanks. I don't disagree with it, but they are relative in terms of power. Otherwise, like the balance wouldn't work between the Yonko. And then here's another scan to literally prove this. Like it literally just says like Big Mama's talking to Nami, and she's like, yeah, if it hadn't been for for her idiotic rebellion, I would have been able to crush Kaido, Red Hair, and even Whitebeard like long ago. Like all the Yonkos are at like a complete like stalemate kind of like in terms of like relativity to where they can't necessarily take out the other. Like none of them are necessarily like doing anything too crazy. Like they're all on the same tier of power. I'm fine with some being stronger or like ranked, but they would still be able to fight on par with each other to some degree.
And I don't know if that's indicative of AP, though, because as we've already addressed and agreed on earlier in the debate, being a Yonko isn't directly correlated with your power. Yes, Yonkos are ridiculously strong, but Shanks specifically, he just has one of the strongest blow-for-blow crews, period, of having stronger crew mates, or at least equal to himself.
Okay, something that was said, I didn't necessarily agree with that earlier in the debate. What I said was being a Yonko isn't necessarily indicative of power, but it is included in being a Yonko, which is why I said that Yonkos do have to be a certain amount of power. And I provided the scans above where I said that Luffy directly refers to, let me scroll up to it where I posted it at. But it's like Luffy literally says, yeah, I don't care if you are a Navy admiral or an emperor of the sea. If I don't beat each and every one of you, just referring to each and every one of the Yonko and the admirals, he's speaking about that tier of power that they're at. I'll never be king of the pirates. So you can't be king of the pirates unless you can beat all of these people. So I think that there's still a tier of power that is implemented into that. But like I said, that's kind of like stuff that we went over earlier. So I feel like it's like best if we like, we stay on track and kind of like stay on this, this relative thing. And even Luffy makes a comparison, like, unless I beat every one of the Yonko, implying like the Yonkos still have to be at this tier of power. Like if Whitebeard was drastically stronger than Shanks, right? And then we know that like Marco arguably is relative to the Admiral. All these people could technically compete with each other, right? Like obviously some lose. Then the Whitebeard pirates should potentially just be able to run through the Red Hair pirates. Even if their overall crew was strong, if we had people like Whitebeard being monsterly above Shanks, and all these statements that kind of imply that they're at the same tier of power, as well as the new stuff that came out in Wano, I think that it's very consistent for Shanks to be that at that tier of power in general.
Well, I think with the Luffy statement is that's just the path to Pirate King, is that you have to be able to beat the Yonkos. It's not necessarily saying like he has to be like, I don't know the best way to word this. It's not him saying like the power of the Yonkos himself is what he has to like go through. It's just that he thinks in order to become Pirate King, you have to beat all of the Yonkos. And Mihawk's never really stated that he's wanted to be Pirate King. That's just not a route that Mihawk wants to go. So, go ahead.
What I'll say to that is like I kind of don't want to add nausea like earlier points, but like what I was saying to in reference to that is that like I agree that like Mihawk might not be in Pirate King and all of these things that you're saying, like some are true, right? But my whole thing was just saying that the Yonkos do have a tier of power. There is like a power requirement. Like you can't be a weak Yonko. Like you can have a strong crew, you can have territories or stuff like that like go into it, but like there is like a power thing. Hence why like when Luffy does get the strong crew and the territory, like literally some of the Yonkos just start clowning him. Like when the announcement comes, because Morgans just start capping on the news, bro. He's like, yeah, Luffy, 6 Yonko, bro. Like obviously we have instances to where we're able to say these things, but then like when we have like Blackbeard or other characters being like, yeah, you're not ready yet, and then we see Luffy get one-shotted by Kaido, these are like direct examples to where he is like clowned or he's portrayed to be weaker. And then we have scans like this where basically, if you're not familiar, Kid is like, I've never gone after Big Mom's head. I wounded one of her commanders, stole what I was after, and left. Implying that Kid would have to be relative to one of Big Mom's commanders, who knows which one. And then it says, I lost my left arm. Before that, I fought with the red hair pirates. Any other questions? He never says he fought with one of the red hair commanders like he did for Big Mom, and he never said he fought with the red hair himself. He just says a pirate. So it's like very interesting that like Kid potentially just got beat up by one of Red Hair Pirates, but he is able to fight one of Big Mom's commanders. And like, we do have statements for like Shanks's crew, but the statements that we have with like the bounty are all referring to his commanders, not his crew. So if anything, it's like portrayed that Shanks's crew is like a different level, bro. Like, they're kind of higher tier than the Yonko. And you could argue, like I said, Shanks would be stronger than Big Mom based off of like Kaido's statement as well, of being able to defeat Kaido, because obviously Big Mom can't. She can't even really injure Kaido. So I think it's like very consistent that we have these tiers of power that Shanks is on and we don't have for other people.
Yeah. Well, sir, I concede. I kind of got fucked when you somehow scaled him to what's his face, the swords dude. Yeah, that kind of fucked me. I had like no contention to that. Well, I tried to have contention to it, but yeah, good debate, bro.
It's fun, man.
Yeah, it was fun. I just I need more One Piece skins because literally I don't have any, bro. I have none.
You're good, man. Come through, man. I got you.
That was a good debate, though. That's a good debate.
Oh, everybody enjoy watching.
Yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. God damn, bro. It's just so like the two things that fucked me up the most were the Conquerors hockey, making them relative to each other, because like the only examples we have of that is that like actually happening, and then him being scaled like with that data book entry, which like is triggering because like I've never read a data book in my life for any anime.
For anything. Yeah, my whole thing is like with that data book thing, like what I would say, like, because normally like I do think like Mihawk wins like more complex wise, but it's like more semantical stuff. It's like with the data book says that they're equal, the fight scene that it shows is like Vista versus like the Vista versus Mihawk fight, but they kind of like show them clashing, and then that's why they're like, they're equal. So it kind of seems like there's no basis for this, and I would argue that it's just from like the fight, and you can't really like assert that. And then we have more reasons to believe why like Mihawk is at that tier of power, like with the whole swordsman thing. We never really